Okay, here we are at the beginning of the Aeneid. Okay. Arma virumque cano, Troiaeque primus arboris, Italiam fato profugus Laviniaque venit. Okay. A little couple words about scansion here. In the second line, um, we have uh, we have an interesting exception right at the beginning here. So we've got oops. Itali fa to, okay. Profugus la win yaque wanit. Okay. Now here, now this name, okay, is pronounced normally Lavinia. Okay. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4 syllables. Okay. But what we've got going on here is um, this is a place where Virgil was able to make an exception because you can see here we've got, if we counted the I as a separate syllable, okay, we would have 3 shorts in a row here where we only want 2. And so apparently what happened is Virgil, in this case, and it's very doable, decided that, well, here the I is going to be a consonant. So instead of Lavinia, it's instead of Lavinia, it's Laviniaque. So that we turn that I into a consonant, and then we have the 2 syllables we need to complete that foot. Okay, so right at the very beginning here, Virgil is setting the stage for us for what and who the story is about. Okay, and notice in the very first line, we've got arms, we've got a man. Okay, we've got the fact that the poet is singing. Okay, very important in the tradition of epic poetry. And then we've got Troy, and of course everyone knows, when a poet mentions Troy, then at the beginning of an epic, then we know that that's what the poem's about. Okay, um, and so yeah, so arms and a man I sing, a man who first from the shores of Troy to Italy, exiled by by fate, exiled profugus by fate, and the Lavinian, he came, okay, shores. So the man who first came from the shores of Troy to Italy, exiled by fate, and came also to the Lavinian shores. Okay, um, having been tossed much, here multum is being used adverbially. Okay, that guy, having been tossed much. And then here we have this very common trope of land and sea. Okay, not just on land, not just on the sea, but land and sea. Okay, having been tossed much, both. Notice the et. Okay, both by land and by sea, or lands plural. Okay, poetic plural is often called. If it sounds funny to us in English, call it a poetic plural. Okay. Um, um, tossed much by land and sea, and here's our word alto for sea, meaning deep, right? Okay. By the power of the gods, because of the cruel wrath, or the mindful or unforgettable wrath, okay, of cruel Juno. Multa, probably many things. Quoque, also. Et could be an and, but if it doesn't work as and, think of it as short for etiam, even or also. In war, having endured. Oh, okay, so having endured many things, also even in war. While he was founding the city, and while he was bringing in the gods to Latium. Okay, this is what's known as a dative of direction. Not used very much in prose, but we will see it in poetry. To Latium, from where? Latium, from where? Okay, the Latin race and the Alban fathers and the walls of high Rome. And notice what we have here is what's often referred to as a transferred epithet. We would think it would be the high walls of Rome, but here it's the walls of high Rome. And that could be serving a couple of purposes. One, just sort of putting the emphasis on Rome, but also probably of high Rome, meaning it probably is a reference to Rome's power, to Rome's loftiness. Okay, and the reference here to the Alban Fathers, this is to Alba Longa. Okay, and the Romans like to emphasize their descent from the people of Alba Longa, because, well, who was from Alba Longa? Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome. Okay, and then what we have here, so he begins with these first few lines, okay, where he's introducing the heart of the story, and that is, now he hasn't mentioned Aeneas by name, but all of his listeners are going to know who he's talking about. You know, that man, right? Okay, but we've got Aeneas mentioned without being named. We've got Troy, okay? We've got him coming to Italy. And then very importantly, we have Juno and her wrath and her hatred of the Trojans and therefore of Aeneas, okay? And remember, Aeneas is Venus's son, and Venus is the goddess that Paris gave the apple to. Okay, so there's a very good reason for Juno to have a thing against Aeneas. Okay, bringing his gods while finding a city and bringing his gods toward Latium. Okay, if someone's bringing their gods, that means they're moving. They're going to establish a new home. Okay, because if you take your gods from your old home, that means you're not going back. Okay. To Latium, from where the Latin race and the Alban Fathers and the high walls of Rome understood probably came. Okay, but it's poetry. You don't have to put the verb in if you don't want it. Okay. Then we have what's known as the invocation of the Muses. Okay. Now Homer normally begins his his epics right from the start with the invocation of the Muses, but here Virgil has delayed that for a few lines. He's putting forth, he's bringing forth this imagery as to what the poem is about before, and now he turns to the Muses, or the Muse. Okay, Muse, and then here we remind me the causes, mention the causes to me. Okay, and here we have an ablative absolute. Okay. And what we have here is a string of indirect questions, okay? Because of what divine will having been harmed? Or grieving at what? Did the Queen of Gods, and notice we have a perfect subjunctive here, because again we have a string of indirect questions, so that it's going to be a regular perfect verb instead of future perfect, even though it looks like it's a perfect subjunctive. Why grieving at what did the Queen of the Gods, and notice we have our what looks like an accusative singular, but it would have been deorum. Okay, but it's poetry, so you can do that. Okay, so whenever you see that, try it out with as a genitive plural, and chances are that's what it's going to be. The Queen of the Gods forced or compelled this man, distinguished in piety, okay, in reverence, in duty, okay, to be involved in, right, to roll through misfortunes, so many misfortunes, to confront so many labors, so many toils. Okay, and labor can mean work, but it can also mean like the work on the battlefield. Okay, the work of fighting. Okay, um, are there such great angers in heavenly minds or souls? And now he's moving away from the invocation, a very brief invocation, and now he's setting forth the story. Okay, there was a city. Tyrian colonists held it. Okay, tenuere here is a perfect third plural, for short for tenuerunt. Okay. And notice how he delays the name of the city. He says there was an ancient city. Then he mentioned Tyrians. Okay, we're at this point, his listeners are going to know what he's talking about. And then, bam, Carthage. Okay. Very far across from Italy and the Tiberian mouths. What are the Tiberian mouths? The mouth of the Tiber River that runs through Rome and then into the Mediterranean on the west coast of Italy. Rich in resources and very harsh in desire for war. Which Juno is said, okay, now sometimes these the passive of Pharaoh can only mean say or think or something like that, and if it does, translate it that way. Which Juno is said to have cherished, okay, more, okay, which one city, right? City alone, perhaps, Juno is said to have cherished more, and then ablative of comparison, than all lands. And then here, post habitus sama, we might even just go ahead and put an even in here in our translation, just to get the meaning across that Virgil intends to convey here, because Samos was traditionally the center for the worship of Juno. That's where the big Greek temples were for Juno, and that's where people would go if they wanted to get Juno's favor. And but here he's being somewhat hyperbolic in saying that Carthage is even more important to Juno than Samos. Okay, here were her arms, here her chariot. This kingdom, if in any way the fates allow, okay, si qua fa tasinant. Okay, so this is an ablative. If in any way, remember, si nisi nomine, all the ollies go away. She tended and favored already at this time that the goddess, okay, that this be the ruling power for nations, okay. But she had heard the offspring had been drawn from Trojan blood, which would overturn the Tyrian citadels one day. From here, a people ruling. Here, regem is being used almost participially, like regantum. A people ruling broadly and proud in war would come for the purpose of the destruction of Libya. In this way, the fates unroll the fate, okay? She knows this is going to happen. There's nothing she can do about it, but she's going to try.